Aloha, everyone. Stock indexes pulled back pretty nicely today following the sell off in Europe last night or in the morning, depends on where you live. But the NASDAQ pulled back overall on lighter volume than the session before. I know that on the Ward IntelliChart, it shows here that volume was above average, but I always trust MarketSmith's numbers better since I pay more annually for their software than this one. So it actually shows volume lower on the NASDAQ and below average. So that's pretty good overall. And I made mention in the chat room earlier today. Why do I get the feeling that this pullback is just a good reason for institutions to accumulate stocks? I don't know. No sell-off really gets much legs, so it's hard to get too fearful here. But overall, the NASDAQ 100, they did what they did. They're still trending above the 50-day moving average, so they remain under buy signals. The Russell 2000 tried to close below the 50-day moving average, and while its 1251 close is technically below its low a day at 1252 the day before, it's still above its 50-day moving average, so this model remains under buy signal. Volume was also lower on this index according to MarketSmith, so no distribution day there either. The NYSE, once again, mixed signals. You can see here it shows volume heavier than the day before, but on MarketSmith, it shows volume well below the day before's levels. So I'm not sure where these guys get their numbers and the other guys get their numbers, but they're way off today. So I'm not sure if S&P 500 was a distribution day or not. I'll call it flat and even. But what's not good is that the S&P 500 has been under this semi-buy neutral signal. It's now straight up neutral signal. So the S&P 500 is back under neutral signal, and the New York Stock Exchange, boy, oh boy, that's not looking good. A few more sell-offs, and this one will be under a sell signal. So it's kind of odd to see the market acting like it's doing here. The Dow Jones Industrial Average still under an overall neutral signal. It's just not really doing anything. It's switched back here, and it's going to stay there now, especially with today's sell-off. I'm not sure if volume was heavier on MarketSmith or not. It really doesn't matter to me with this index. But the Dow Jones Transportation Average overall held up reasonably well compared to its recent lows back here on May the 29th. So overall, this index is holding up, but nothing looks great. I assume it means more chop because today, once again, our Slim scans, I actually had more stocks up by the end of the day than I thought I would. And in my own personal current holdings, I thought that they did very well compared to the overall market today. And my price volume BOP scan, despite the below average volume or at average volume of the NASDAQ, depending on who's right with my data providers, I had over 120 stocks qualify for that scan, and in my opinion, that's quite a healthy number on all of these scans, considering it was a near down 1% day in the overall market and a down 1% day for the Russell 2000 and Dow Jones Industrial Average. So kind of a semi-good sign. And I guess another semi-good sign is I only had 3 full sell signals today, and one was SPLK, which I've told you has already been a semi-nightmare trading stock. So I'm already out of SPLK, but finally today on a closing basis, it's finally a full sell as it's closing below the 512 low a day, which was the original cut loss level to the long position before I moved it up to these levels. But SPLK is now finally gone, and I don't have to track it anymore, and I'm over it. So goodbye. BMRN, also 100% sell signal. 2 days ago, by it moving below these lower days, I got out of half my position. I kept the other half on. I think I raised my stop to this level. I'll have to go check really quick, but I believe it was 121.53. Well, that can't be right. I know what it was now. So I moved half of it for it to close below this level on the first. It did that, and then I moved the final sell stop now to 120.86. When it blew past 120.86, I was taken out of it, and as you can see, it closed lower than where that sell stop was at. So overall, a good trade. But BMRN has failed fully, already out of half of it going into today's session. And then MNK failed today, and I actually got relatively lucky. I listed this stock as an ad last night, but because I was so short with cash, I had to come up. Was I going to go long INSY in the cash account or MNK in the cash account? Fortunately, which rarely ever happens, I picked right in INSY, which was up nearly 3% today. But MNK, because I didn't take it in the cash account, and because I'm so heavily on margin in the other account, I felt like, well, since the stock didn't close higher than where it opened, even though it was only by 5 cents, I'm just going to go ahead and pass on it and wait for a buy stop. So what I decided to do is put a buy stop above 130.88 in the margin account, and if it broke above 130.88 I would have been long. And as you can see today, M&K did not do that, sold off basically all day long on heavier volume. But with our earlier long position on 527, it's a full sell. The final sell stop I had was below 125.88, and it cut through that, closing at 124.28. So M&K is a full sell. Also, DGLY was a 50% sell. I've basically already been out of it already with my 50% position back here. And so what I'm going to do is the final sell stop on the remaining position is being moved up to 1287. So 1286 is where the final sell stop will be on DGLY, but DGLY is a 50% sell on an end-of-day basis. It's speculative, so it doesn't matter. And then TERP, heavier volume sell-off below the 50-day moving average, cracking below the May support levels. TERP is a 50% sell. Now what I'm doing is with my remaining shares, 50% sell if it moves below today's low day, and 50% sell if it moves below the March base back here, the support levels back in March. And also DRI was a new long. And so half my sell stop, basically, all my sell stop was put at 63.80, the 26th low, but basically I was going to take off half if it moved below 64.65. On the 2nd, which was 2 days ago, it lost its green bop catalyst on heavier volume, so I moved up half that sell stop to 64.65. Ripped through it today, so DRI is a 50% sell on a closing basis also. I was taken out intraday. The only stock that I was taken out of that by the end of the day I'm not making a sell is CACC. I was taken out of 50% of it when it closed below these lows, but it's bouncing around the 50-day moving average, so what you can do is get rid of 50% if you haven't yet if it moves below 216.06. So that was the only one. And on that note, with all those sells out of the way, which actually isn't that much considering that on an end-of-day basis I have 0 sells to take this evening. They've all been hit already. I do now have 1 new long position and 3 add signals. JLL is a CanSlim quality stock. Unfortunately, the volume surge wasn't quite large enough, but it almost was to put it in the 1.5% volume scan. To me, it's close enough, splitting hairs. It was only like a couple 100,000 shares. Or excuse me, a couple thousand shares, excuse me. So JLL is a new long position, 2.5% of the account capital on that. If we're wrong, we don't even risk basically a full 1%. We risk, okay, if we're really wrong, we do risk 1%, 1.20% to be exact. So once again, if we're right, big potential, big reward, very, very small chance for a loss. And then LXFT is giving an add signal. This is a CanSlim quality stock that was also confirmed in the pre-Perfect Speculator scan stock and the price volume BOP surge scan. The only thing I don't like about it is that it's closing relatively well off its high of the day. So therefore, I don't want to increase 1%, 0.5%, 0.5%, make it a 2% position. I'll just say it was confirmed from the CanSlim scan and those other 2 scans and make it 1%. So LXFT is a 1% add signal here, as it showed some really strong relative strength compared to the weak market today. And then GSL is a speculative long position, but it's basically right at where we just went long on our initial long position, and it's held up relatively well. BOP's fallen a little bit, but it's still close enough to max green BOP level that it's of no concern. Pocket pivot point signal today with a big intraday reversal. Quite a relative strength divergence with it being up 1.22% today compared to the overall market. So GSL 1%, not confirmed anywhere. And then UVXY, I'm going to add to it again. Tell you what, this exchange traded fund for the volatility used to really screw me up. Every time I would get a long signal in it, it would like gap up super high and give me a terrible fill. And whenever I get a sell signal to get out, it would gap low and give me a terrible sell signal. However, every long signal has given me a good entry, and the one sell signal I got gave me a good exit. And here we have UVXY producing another buyable signal. Heavier volume move. BOP is still very close to max green BOP, and it's actually breaking above the recent resistance. So overall, I want to add to that hedge 2% position for that hedge because it's ETF and confirmed in the price volume BOP scan, but because it's not a stock, it can be in 4 scans, and that would make it 4% because we need to hedge here in case the market decides to continue to sell off against our very heavily long portfolios.